Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. But with that said, let's get to the topic of the day. And I'll just say this. It isn't often that college basketball gets knocked off the lead of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast here in March. But on Monday, we got a piece of college football news that was so big and so interesting, I would be remiss if I did not talk about it on today's show. And it came from the world of high school football, where the number 3 quarterback in the high school class of 2023, a quarterback that just finished or is about to finish his junior year going into his senior year, made his college commitment. 5-star quarterback NICO IAMALEAVA, I think I said that name right, not far from where I live down in Long Beach, California. NICO IAMALEAVA made his college commitment, and drumroll please. NICO IAMALEAVA has committed to the University of Tennessee, picking the Vols over a bunch of other schools, most notably Oregon. And as you sit back and as you listen to this, I bet you're probably wondering one thing. You're probably sitting there saying, Torres, why are you talking about the commitment of a high school football player in the middle of March Madness? You never talk recruiting. I mean, every once in a while you'll hit on a really, really big college football recruiting note. But in the middle of March, what could be so interesting about this commitment that you have decided that you need to interrupt our March Madness coverage to talk about a 5-star quarterback that won't play college football for 2 more years? Well, the reason I'm talking about NICO IAMALEAVA is for one simple reason. There are reports, and actually pretty credible reports, unlike the Texas A&M stuff, which we'll get into in a minute. There is actually some very credible reports that NICO IAMALEAVA is getting insane NIL money, and so that is why I have to talk about it. And when I say insane, I mean insane. According to a report from The Athletic, I'll give you the details in a minute, but NICO IAMALEAVA could make upwards of $8 million, according to a report that doesn't explicitly name him, but sort of names him. And so this is all alleged, this is all reported, none of it's 100% true. But this 5-star quarterback could make upwards of $8 million, and it has caused chaos in the world of college football. And so the question becomes, how do we know all these details? So let me even backtrack a week or two. I think it was about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. I remember it was a Friday night. I'm watching college hoops. I guess it was during championship week. And The Athletic puts out this report about collectives in college football. And some of you are probably sitting there wondering, what is a collective? What does that mean? Well, what a collective essentially is a group of boosters who have come together and basically put money in a fund to help with NIL deals in college athletics. It, of course, started with the best of intentions. Everybody throws in a couple bucks. And then if you want basketball player, football player, tennis, golfer to come do something for you NIL related, you take a little money out of the collective, and if my understanding is correct, you give it to them, and they come do some NIL stuff. So I want a UConn basketball player or a UConn women's basketball player to tweet out about the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, and I'm willing to pay $200 or $300 or $500. I go to the collective because, remember, NIL deals cannot be done or helped or progressed by the school, so the collective handles it. I give them a check, they give it to the player, and the player does whatever NIL stuff that I want. Of course, because this is college sports, we all know that the second that NIL became a thing and the second that collectives became a thing with the best of intentions, there were going to be a lot of different schools that took the little collective ho-hum, here's $50 to tweet about this, and just completely blew it up. And so the Athletic report detailed, basically, the Athletic report detailed a collective that had an agreement to pay a high school star football player upwards of $8 million to essentially commit to a school, but because of the verbiage and because of the way, remember, according to NCAA rules, it can't be pay for play, it can't be a recruiting inducement, and so the way this contract was structured, the Athletics saw it, it was basically an $8 million quote-unquote NIL deal, which was essentially pay for play and a recruiting enticement. And because people on the internet are smart, they kind of put two and two together. They saw that California is essentially one of the few states in America where players can get NIL money while still in high school. This contract starts as soon as the player commits. And basically everybody put together that it was this kid, NICO IAMALEAVA, who was getting $8 million to commit. So when he commits to Tennessee on Monday, everybody kind of knows, okay, we put two and two together. We had a report. We knew it was this kid. He commits to this school. Now we know who is willing to pay, allegedly, reportedly, we don't know for sure, but we kind of know for sure, $8 million for a high school quarterback. And so that's the story. Those are the details. And this is how we got to the point on Monday where you had basically every SEC fan base and really every college football fan base up in arms over the idea that the going rate for a high school five-star quarterback is now upwards of close to 8 figures. And so many of you asked me about it. A few of you reached out. A few of you said, what do you think about this, Torres? You must be outraged. You must be so upset. You must be furious. You love college sports. Nobody loves college sports more than you. And you must be furious that we have this crazy, almost 8-figure deal for a high school quarterback to go play college football in a year or two. To which I would say, I'm really not that upset. I really don't care. And I really don't have that big of a problem with it. Why don't I have a problem with it as somebody who loves college football and loves college basketball? Well, it's pretty simple. There are 2 reasons that this story, it doesn't bother me. First of all, for years, you guys and girls, and I don't mean you specifically, John or Bill listening to this show, but the metaphorical you, people, the public, have been clamoring to get college athletes paid, to have NIL in place to help college athletes make money off the field. I was never against NIL. You can go back and listen to episodes from this show from 3, 4, 5 years ago. I was never against NIL. But at the same time, the reason I'm not upset, the reason I'm not mad, the reason I'm not furious that there may be a high school quarterback that gets upwards of $8 million to play SEC football over the next 4 years is because I told you this was going to happen. From the second NIL became a real talking point and we got to a point where it was going to happen at some point. You can go back to the episode I did after LeBron James and Gavin Newsom, the California governor, signed the Fair Play Act back in like 2018 or 2019. I told you this is what it's going to get to. I know when we all talked NIL on the granular level, and by the way, there's a lot of people in the media that don't really understand how college sports worked. I think everybody thought it was going to be with the best of intentions. Oh, the star quarterback from Alabama is going to get paid a couple $100 to go promote Uncle John's Car Wash or the Rib Shack or this place or a bar or a this or a that. I even heard a credible recruiting writer say as much the other day in an interview that he was doing. To which I say, do you guys know college sports at all? Because why I'm not upset today is because the second we started talking about NIL, I told you this was going to happen. I told you that very quickly NIL was going to turn into pay for play and more importantly, recruiting enticements, and that the average person, even people who work in sports, have no idea how much the top high school players are going to go for. Because if you're paying them already, and most of them are all being paid, before, under the table, imagine what you can do when it all becomes above board. And we knew the NCAA wasn't really going to step in because the NCAA has no backbone. And so we knew it was going to spiral completely out of control in a matter of time. And that matter of time is less than a year. This is the first full recruiting class that has NIL in place. Obviously, the class of 2022, it happened the summer before. So now these kids have time to hire an agent, hire a lawyer, listen to offers. Schools have time to put stuff together. This is what was always going to happen. So why am I not mad? It's because I told you it was going to happen. It'd be like me listening to the weather report tonight, hearing that it's going to rain tomorrow, and then waking up and being mad because it's raining. It's like, you told me it was going to rain. Why am I going to be mad? And I told you 3 years ago, The second NIL got put into place, it was not going to be this, feel good. The starting left tackle gets a deal with the car wash. It's going to be go find me the best recruit, pay whatever it takes, do whatever it takes to get him on campus. Now, I think the bigger question becomes, and this one's more interesting to me, is what does it mean for the future of college sports? Because I do think there's this belief that college sports is completely going off the train tracks. This is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. And while I would say, I do think, listen, I go back to what I've said from the beginning. I was never against NIL. I don't think that we should just be going to the highest bidder for recruits, but this was always where it was going to get. And so rather than me complaining about it, I live in the reality where this is. But what I would say is I don't think that this is going to be as bad as everybody says, because all I hear is, oh my God, everybody's going to the highest bidder and it's going to ruin college sports and the rich are going to get richer and all that stuff. I don't buy any of that. I don't think it's going to ruin college sports as we know it, because I do think that there are a couple factors that not enough people talk about. First of all, I do still think at the end of the day, most recruits, NIL is going to be a factor. I even talked about it with Texas A&M a few weeks ago. Now, the Texas A&M deal was different. Texas A&M was message board rumors that quickly became mainstream stuff. This is The Athletic talking about a collective that has an $8 million contract on the table, and it's pretty obvious who the contract is going to, okay? So this is different to me than Texas A&M. But at the same time, I bring it up to say that while NIL will always be a factor going forward in any recruitment, I do still believe we're overblowing it for one reason. I do still believe that most kids are going to commit not because of NIL, but because of NFL or because of NBA or because of MLB. In other words, NIL will be a factor in recruitment, just like facilities are, just like system is, just like whatever. But at the end of the day, players are still going to, I believe, mostly commit because if they are a 5-star, which means that they are on track to go to the NFL or NBA, they are still going to the place that is going to best put them in position to have success. If you're a basketball player, and I know basketball is a little different because it's the one and done, you can pretty much go anywhere, you're still probably going to choose Duke or Kentucky. I mean, go through the recruiting rankings this particular season, 2022, as it pertains to commitments. Before Shaden Sharp reclassified, Kentucky had 3 top 15 guys. Duke has 3 top 10 guys. It's because Duke and Kentucky, as bad as Kentucky was in this tournament, they put the most guys in the NBA, and that's the best place to go if you want to be put in position to have success. So I still believe that when push comes to shove, while NIL will be a factor, the best players are still probably going to choose Alabama because it's the best place. It's the best place to go to get you ready for the NFL. Ohio State because it's the best place to get you ready for the NFL. Go to Tennessee. Listen, you could talk about this kid, and he's a 5-star, and he chose Tennessee, and oh my goodness. Well, you could pick a lot worse coaches to play for than Josh Heupel. This isn't like this kid, and I know this guy doesn't coach anymore, but it's not like this kid is taking all this money to go play for Will Muschamp or to go play for, I don't know, I can't even, who's the worst offensive mind you can think of. It's like he's going to play at Army and run the triple option. He's going to play for a real coach in Josh Heupel that has proven an ability to get quarterbacks ready for the NFL. And so, yes, the number feels huge, but I still believe it's going to come down to, for most recruits, what is the place to best position you to get ready for the pros, not where can I make the most money right now this second. Secondly, I've heard this narrative that I just don't get, where it's like, well, this is just going to make the rich richer. It's like, have you followed recruiting at all? Because I'm pretty sure that prior to NIL, Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State basically had the number 1, number 2, number 3 recruiting class every single year from basically the last decade. And so I don't know how much the rich can get richer when they were already signing all the best players. As a matter of fact, I think it will have the opposite effect. I think NIL in some ways will balance the playing field. Now look, if you're a big enough school, if you're Texas, if you're Oklahoma, if you're Georgia, if you're Tennessee, if you're Florida, if you're Miami, whatever, you're going to find ways. If a kid wants to come there and some school has this, but you can offer that, you're going to find a way to get the kid paid. But at the same time, nobody has unlimited funds, and so I do think that it's going to set up a situation where Tennessee, if we go down a road where NIL has no real rules like it does now, Tennessee's going to have to figure out how do they want to spend their money. Maybe Tennessee wants to spend $8 million on a quarterback and not on anyone to block for him. I know that Texas has some kind of system put in place where I think every offensive lineman gets $50,000 the second they step foot on campus. And I saw an interview with Steve Sarkisian on Monday where he basically said, like, look, we're really happy with how our offensive and defensive lines are shaking out. So in the first year of post-NIL, yes, Texas signed Quinn Ewers, the quarterback, former 5-star who spent last year at Ohio State out of the transfer portal, but it seems as though their quote-unquote NIL money, a lot of it went to the offensive and defensive lines. And so I actually think in many ways this will balance the playing field at the Power 5 level. Now, where I think it'll get hurt is the Group of 5 level, because Group of 5 teams, whether it's the Mountain West, Conference USA, whatever, Wyoming and San Jose State, if they have a good player, they just can't compete if one of these schools comes in and offers a quote-unquote NIL deal. And so to me, it feels like, I don't want to say much to do about nothing, but this idea that the rich are going to get richer, I'm pretty sure Alabama was already pretty good before this. The same with Ohio State, and now this could create a more competitive playing field. But the idea that I'm supposed to be outraged when all of you guys and girls told me for years, pay college players, pay college players, pay college players. Did you not think it was going to get to a point where recruits we were just going to have bidding wars for? So I'm not upset. I'm not outraged. I just can't get there. And I'm very curious to see what happens over the next couple of years. One last thing I will say, though, one narrative that I do disagree with. I know some people say the rich will get richer. I don't agree with that one. The one thing I do wonder about, and this is just kind of to wrap up the point because I know I'm going long here, I do wonder about the idea that the playing field will balance itself out. In other words, like if Tennessee plays $8 million for this quarterback and he doesn't work out, that they're never going to pay for a recruit again. I just don't know that I believe that, because that's not how recruiting works. Recruiting works in a way that every single year, every single guy you get committed is always better than the guy that you have on campus, and you can't wait to get this guy on campus because he's so much better. So that part I don't know about, but I am interested to see how this evolves over the next couple of years. One, I'm curious to see if the NCAA actually has the backbone to try to wrap its arms around it, because as I said from the beginning, I don't love this. I don't love the idea that a kid's going to get $8 million to go play college football when he's done nothing. My thing with NIL that I've said for weeks now, I did a segment probably about a month ago where I said, how do you fix NIL? I think the money should be going to the players that actually have earned it by actually contributing to the school. I didn't like the idea that Quinn Ewers was making $1 million+ a year at Ohio State as the 4th-string quarterback when there were guys on the field that were actually putting butts in the seats at the Horseshoe and actually doing something to benefit the team on the field. But this is where we're at. So I'm curious to see if the NCAA puts its arms around it. I don't think they can at this point. I think the toothpaste is out of the tube. But like I said, this is what you guys and girls wanted. You told me for years we got to pay college athletes. Well, guess what? They're getting paid. And this 5-star quarterback, NICO IAMALEAVA, I hope I said that name right, reportedly $8 million to go to Tennessee. This is the new world we live in. We'll see what happens next. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube channel. Also, make sure to download full episodes of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere where you listen to podcasts.